Take a look at these photos. It looks like another amazing weight loss transformation, but it is a much darker side. Heather Palumbo Jones decided to make a change in her life, and she lost over 160 pounds. Little did she know, her husband's rage and jealousy grew with every pound she lost. On today's True Crime, could it happen to you? Could you be murdered for losing weight? Crime correspondent Melissa Moore has the story.
Heather Palumbo met Chris Jones on New Year's Eve in 1999. She was 19. It was love at first sight. The two soon married and started a family. Heather had struggled with weight her entire life, but as Chris's control over her began to grow, so did her weight. After delivering her 2 children, she topped the scales at nearly 300 pounds. Motivated to improve her life, Heather pursued her education and landed her dream job as a kindergarten teacher. She also started making healthy lifestyle changes, like starting Zumba classes, and the pounds began to fall off. Within 18 months, she'd lost over 160 pounds. But her weight loss took a heavy toll on her marriage. As Heather began to blossom socially and professionally, Chris became more controlling, jealous, and threatened. Fights between the couple began to escalate, and on January 1st, 2013, Heather moved from their home and filed for divorce. Heather confided to friends and family that Jones was stalking and harassing her, and filed for sole custody of their 2 children. April 16, 2013, 3 days before the custody hearing, Palumbo Jones was reported missing when she failed to show up for work. Suspicion immediately fell on her estranged husband. A week later, Heather's body, badly burned and wrapped in an air mattress, was found by the side of the road. Ultimately, Jones confessed to the brutal crime and was convicted of first-degree murder. But was the murder motivated by Heather's dramatic weight loss transformation? And could you lose your life just for losing weight?
Crime correspondent Melissa Moore joins us now. I'm trying to wrap my head around this story. So you developed a relationship with Heather's family. You understand a bit more about what her friends are going through. How are they coping?
Well, obviously this is a horrible tragedy, and I think why I got so attached to this case is it's kind of similar in some ways to my own background. I grew up in a home where there was domestic abuse, violence. I remember my own mother trying to escape a relationship that was unhealthy. And as a young girl, I watched her try to improve her life. She went to college. And so this kind of mirrored my own childhood, I guess, in a way. I saw Heather as this beautiful woman who empowered her life and with wonderful friends supporting her. And the fact that she was a mother, had 2, gorgeous kids, was trying to protect them, and then she's gone. And that her husband was the one culpable for this. So there's no winners here at all, absolutely. And the children were actually orphaned. Sure. They were left with nobody. And so now they're with a family member, they're being raised by a cousin. So in this case, it has a happy ending in some way for the children, but overall, it's a horrible tragedy.
Let's talk about what happened. So you got this remarkable success story that turns into a terrible murder mystery. What clued police in? What led them to thinking that her husband murdered her because she'd lost weight?
Well, in this case, he was very possessive and jealous. He had married her slightly overweight, and as she started to lose the weight, he was actually telling her, forcing her to eat some more. He didn't want her to lose this weight. As she became more involved with the community, she was isolated before. And then once she pursued her education, she was out in the world. She was making friends. And then as she was going to work out, she was making friends there. So he got very jealous. He even admitted that he was very jealous about his wife, and that's ultimately why he killed her.
The evidence was, I understand, circumstantial. Mm-hmm. So why would he confess? This whole ending is so shocking to me.
Yeah, normally it is shocking to me as well that he would confess. I think ultimately he must have had some form of a conscience to tell, but also there were friends that witnessed his car leaving. There's so many people around this case that saw different signs that alerted them. So this is a small community, so he had to face all the neighbors, and everybody was obviously looking at him.
But there was this shocking moment when all of a sudden he's pulled in and realizes the gig's up. He, on his own,
confessed that he was jealous of his wife, and that's ultimately why he killed her.
Up next, could you spot jealous rage that could lead to murder? The people closest to Heather are here. The warning signs they say they missed. Stay with us. We're back asking the question, could you be murdered for losing weight? It actually happened to 33-year-old kindergarten teacher Heather Palumbo Jones after her husband was driven into a fit of rage and jealousy over her incredible weight loss transformation. Joining us now are two of Heather's close friends, Joanna and Carrie. So Carrie, how's it affected you emotionally losing your friend?
You know, I was a Memphis police officer for 14 years, so I saw that on a daily basis, domestic violence. For it to happen so close to me with a friend right there in my face, in my own personal space, someone that I danced with, that I was a friend with closely. We talked about relationships. Her children went to my child's school. To happen right there in my face to a close friend was devastating.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, Joanna, if Heather hadn't lost the weight, do you think she would be alive today?
I think so. I don't think that Chris would have been intimidated by anyone. I think he would have still had control over her, and I think she'd still be alive today.
I think things would have ended differently. You know, Heather got her degree and landed her job as teaching kindergarten. Then she made the decision to transform herself, and she was like a butterfly who transformed herself, and it transformed her spirit, and she was blooming and blossoming and making friends and new relationships. And through the fitness classes, through losing weight and being out there more socially, I think that drove Chris over the edge. So I do believe if she had not lost weight, things would have ended differently.
Why do you think Chris admitted he murdered her? He probably could have gotten away with this.
There's no way Chris would have gotten away with this.
There's no evidence to convict him.
No, there's no hard evidence to convict him. I saw him that night.
Oh.
At 3 o'clock in the morning, the night Heather was killed. He didn't know that was me, but I saw him when I was coming home from my shift from work, and I drove right by where he lived, and he was coming out. And it was 3 o'clock in the morning. I thought to myself, that's odd. What's Chris doing out at 3 in the morning? Why is he driving so erratically? And I watched him for a bit, and then the next morning get the phone call that from one of our other friends that, Heather's missing, Carrie, we gotta do something. And I think just through everything that we knew about Heather and Chris and some things that he said and the stalking and things that he'd done in the past, it wasn't hard to put together who was responsible for her disappearance and ultimately her murder.
In the Germantown Police Department, this doesn't happen in our community.
At all.
And I remember when we were looking for her, we went to her house and there was a black SUV parked in her driveway at the entrance. And I walked up there to introduce myself to the officer because we had been looking for her, and I was wanting to ask, what else can we do? And the window rolled down, and it was a deputy chief. So the second in command was at the scene just guarding the property.
Right.
So they put, he wasn't sitting at his desk in his office. He was on the ground, and everyone in the police department there worked so diligently with the prosecution team.
Yeah, they were
to
awesome.
be able to get a first-degree conviction, and it was real detective grunt work that they had to do, old school, and they were able to do it. And we would have never gotten a first-degree conviction without their diligent work on this
Everyone
case.
cared. Everyone really came together. I really cared about Heather in this case.
Let me push a little bit on this relationship between Chris and Heather. So Carrie, in your opinion, as a friend, knowing the couple, what did you think about how they interacted?
From the first time I met Chris, I thought he was very odd. And I asked myself, why is Heather married to him? Mm-hmm. I knew Heather and I knew her personality and her attitude towards life, and it did not match Chris and the way he went about life. His attitude and his persona, everything he gave off. It was not a good match.
You're a police officer. Now that I know that, I'll ask you
Yes, sir.
for details.
Yes, sir.
So, what was odd about him?
The fact that he had very little to no friends, okay, and just some of the things that he would say to her, the way he maybe would act around her. And
The belittling comments or challenging comments?
not that I heard in front of me, but she would tell me.
And the changes that she probably saw in herself, that you witnessed in her through her weight loss, how did that change her marriage, Joanna?
I think he became extremely jealous of her. You know, she was able to get this confidence in herself that he had never seen before, and he was very intimidated by that.
Just looking back, did you observe red flags, issues that should have alerted you to the fact that it was a dangerous environment?
I did.
You did?
Absolutely did.
Like
Stalking.
stalking?
Heather came to my house one day and brought a notepad and a pen and sat down and said, "Carrie, can you tell me how to leave Chris safely?" And I gave her some advice as a police officer and as a friend, how she could leave and what she should do should he surprise her by showing up at her house or at her job. And he did those things.
Did she reach out to them?
No.
Why do you think she didn't?
I think that she thought it would send him over the edge. Like he was already a bit unstable, and that would push him. And that he would do something drastic to get her attention because of all this.
Was she scared,
Yeah.
Joanna?
Yes, she was. She told us, we were at a New Year's Eve party. That's when she told us that she was going to leave him the next day. And I said, "Does Chris know?" And she said, "No, I haven't told him yet." So she had a very planned out way that she was going to leave him, but it was going to be very secret. He wasn't going to know. And so I think because she was afraid of what he might do.
And how did you react, both of you, when you found out she'd been murdered?
When Heather first went missing and we looked for about a week, about a week and 2 days later, we were given the information they found her body. It was a feeling of utter devastation, just the reality of the search is over. We can't hold out hope anymore because it's gone. It's definite, it's done. Heather's been killed. We know this because they found her body. It was just pure devastation, a very heavy, very strong feeling. Again, I'm used to seeing a lot of things on the job, but not right here with my friends.
Up next, the warning signs. I want to share them with you. How can you spot deadly rage and jealousy in your own life? We're back searching for answers behind the shocking story of a woman who was murdered by her jealous husband for losing over 160 pounds. And we're asking the question, when it comes to weight loss, when does jealousy go too far? Joining me now is obesity psychologist and forensic specialist, Dr. Eleni Marcantonis. And she says she sees a lot of these patients in her practice where extreme weight loss can affect relationships in quite a few ways. Well, what have you found?
Well, first we have to see how extreme weight loss impacts the person who loses all the weight. They often have a surge in confidence, and they go through not just physical transformations, but through emotional transformations and mental transformations. With confidence comes better self-esteem, a better body image. They have less depressive symptoms, and they become much more active. They really feel reborn in many ways, and they want to experience all the things that they weren't able to previously do when they were very overweight. So what happens in relationships is that this can sometimes make their spouse feel very insecure. It could make them feel jealous. It can make a spouse feel like, well, now that they look better, are they still going to want to be with me? Now, in addition to that, there's a lot of lifestyle changes that happens when people lose a lot of weight. And sometimes a spouse may feel that we don't have things in common anymore.
Identity issues.
Identity issues, yes. So the identity issues are very important. When someone loses a lot of weight, they start to perceive themselves in a different way. They suddenly perceive themselves as someone who has choices. someone who has other options. And we see this in the case with Heather. She found the confidence to leave an abusive relationship. And it sounds like this relationship had been very controlling and very abusive throughout.
And the triggers are for the person who wants to be controlling, no longer feeling that he has that safety.
Yes. You know, in Heather's case, her husband felt like he really lost control. Her newfound independence triggered his jealousy and rage. He didn't have any control over her anymore, and he really felt like he was going to lose her because of that. You saw how he became very jealous. I think some of the reports describe him as very controlling. So we already see elements of abuse in this relationship.
And what are the positive sides of losing weight for relationships? Because I hear about that on the stage usually. This is the first time I ever talked about someone losing a lot of weight. In fact, when we first started, I think the audience was sort of caught off guard, right? You all probably thought it was another great success story. And then they hear someone was murdered for doing the right thing for themselves, caught us all off guard.
There are a lot of positive aspects to weight loss for relationships. So for example, some people, when their spouse loses a lot of weight, they feel like they got their old spouse back.
Yeah.
They can do things again. Their spouse is in a better mood. They want to socialize more. So for a relationship that was already good or good enough, extreme weight loss shouldn't really have a real negative impact. But for relationships that were already on the rocks or a failing marriage, extreme weight loss can have a very negative impact because the person losing weight becomes very independent.
So what are the warning signs that you're hopefully not going to find a murder case in your hands, but there might be a bigger crisis looming out there as you transform your body and get healthier?
Absolutely. Some of the warning signs that you want to look for in a spouse are controlling behavior. Control is the core element of these abusive relationships. This is the person who wants to know where you are, what you're doing, who you're with, and they want to isolate you. They isolate you from family, from friends. In Heather's case, you could see how her weight was already isolating. And you see this with some people who are morbidly obese. They're very isolated by their own weight. It doesn't take a lot to isolate them. They're doing it themselves. So control is a big issue. The second one is intense jealousy. This isn't just the kind of normal jealousy that you see in the beginning of a relationship that could be a little endearing, people think. This is jealousy with real accusations. Accusing someone of infidelity, accusing someone of looking at someone, looking at other men, calling other men, going through your phone. This is real intense jealousy. The other issue that we have to look at is aggressiveness. Someone who has a bad temper, someone who's very volatile, someone who has been physically harming you, that all falls under the umbrella of aggressiveness. After that, we also have to look at sabotage. Is your partner trying to sabotage any efforts for you to get better? We see this with weight loss. The partner is bringing home fast food. They're bringing home their favorite ice cream, tempting them with alcohol perhaps, to sabotage their weight loss efforts because they feel threatened. Now, this doesn't also have to just look at weight loss. This could also they can also sabotage other areas. For example, if someone wants to go back to school, or got offered a better job, or got offered a job where they get to travel to great places. This can also trigger someone who is jealous.
Thank you very much for sharing your expertise.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Lenny. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss out on new videos to live the good life.